What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today we have got another live fantasy football mock draft for you, but this time it will actually be our first auction mock draft of the season, so it should be pretty exciting. It's a 10-team PPR mock auction on ESPN, and as you can see, we will be kicking it off shortly. But before we get into it, a quick reminder, check out the all-new website at alldaypigskin.com. Get exclusive content over there, along with getting yourself a copy of the 2020 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. Great price, and it's got everything you could possibly want. All the details in the description. Top 150 overall player ranking, standard and PPR formats, along with individual player bios, tiers, projections, along with guys to target, guys to avoid, and general fantasy advice. So check that out now. But with that being said, let's get into this thing, because as you can see, we have had our first nomination. As you would expect, it is Christian McCaffrey, and as you would expect, the bidding has gone pretty much through the roof. Now, for what it's worth, it's a 10-team mock draft here, and I believe we only have 2 people that are going to be on auto pick, so this should be pretty accurate. I'm hoping we don't see any craziness in terms of over evaluations, over biddings. But so far, honestly, $70 for Christian McCaffrey. He was ranked, quote unquote, for 59, I believe. That makes sense. That's my expectation. And honestly, I would not be shocked to see him go for more than that. $200 limit in terms of your budget. And in running back heavy leagues, in PPR formats especially, you know McCaffrey is going to garner a large sum of money. Patrick Mahomes just got nominated, and I don't mind this strategy if that's what this person was going for, nominating a quarterback early and then forcing others to go ahead and spend their money on this guy. Usually, I like to go ahead and wait until I nominate players that I like, just so that some other individuals, some other team owners have spent their own money. That's always my strategy with these auction drafts. And some people, they even nominate, as you can see here, a defense or a kicker early on. And in this case, the Patriots defense. If someone goes ahead, bids $2, all right, they'll go ahead and get them. Me personally, I wouldn't even go to that $3 amount. You go ahead, you take a chance on it, you nominate them for $1, and that's that. And that's kind of what happened here. The person with the $2 bet ended up winning. But honestly, guys, with these auction drafts, they're a completely different beast to our normal snake drafts in terms of strategy, in terms of budget management. That's such a key thing. And for the last couple of years, we've been putting out strategies for auction drafts and how you should approach them. And we'll probably do the same thing again this year, just because, again, you can go ahead, you can be aggressive, you can be kind of balanced in terms of your spending, or even conservative. And the way that you nominate certain individuals, whether you get into bidding wars or not, and then the type of depth you go ahead and get. It's all a part of this complicated equation, and the more practice you get with these auction drafts, the better, at least for the sake of knowing how these players, the elite players, are valued on your respective platforms. So, here you can kind of get a good idea that the top running backs on ESPN's auction format are ranked around $55, $60. And I will add to this that I believe ESPN just recently updated the rankings, because up until maybe a week ago, they had Michael Thomas as their number 2 overall player. And now you can see that with Christian McCaffrey off the board, Barkley would be 2, Zeke 3, Camaro 4, who has gone up, and Michael Thomas all the way down to number 5. So ESPN has updated their rankings, which I can appreciate. And with that being said, they've probably obviously also updated their dollar amounts for these players. And the fact that Lamar Jackson is being bid on for $62 right now is insane, because Patrick Mahomes went for $38 So I have no idea what's going on right now. I mean, you can see the pre-draft value for Lamar Jackson is $27. And this is a perfect example of what you don't want to do. This is the equivalent of drafting Lamar Jackson in the first round. And honestly, in the very early first round, because Lamar Jackson just went for $63 while Christian McCaffrey went for $70. That is absolutely insane. That's why I never draft quarterbacks early in auction drafts. I wait until the latter point of the draft. We hit skill position players first, and then some really quality quarterbacks can go ahead and be had for, $5-10, and $10 is probably pushing it. I'd say between $5 and $10. I've had it before where, you kind of just nominate someone for the sake of nominating them and don't even want them. And you nominate some, still top 10 type of quarterback like a Russell Wilson or someone like that, and you end up getting them with a $1 or $2 bid, something like that. So those things can happen. That's why I really don't advise going quarterback this early, and especially getting in a bidding war with Lamar Jackson. I don't know what the deal was here. I don't know if that was a one-off. It kind of throws off the budget management for these teams and how we go ahead and, stack up against them, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, this is all about personal budget management, and that's what you guys should be paying attention to as well. So here you see that Saquon Barkley just went for $62. So Barkley went for $1 less than Lamar Jackson. You guys are smart fantasy football players. You know that is absolutely bonkers. And for what it's worth, I think that honestly might be a good deal on Saquon Barkley. I'm a little bit bummed to see Alvin Kamara pretty much fetching top dollar. Maybe a month ago, Alvin Kamara in standard drafts. Again, granted, this is honestly our first auction draft of the season. In standard drafts, though, Alvin Kamara was going, standard snake drafts, I should say, going with the, fifth, sixth, sometimes even seventh pick overall. Whereas I'm going to go ahead and quickly bid $52 on Ezekiel Elliott because I do think that is a good value. He was kind of flying under the radar with his evaluation of $54. But basically what I was getting at with Alvin Kamara is that he was undervalued before, and now he's pretty much back to where his projections were for last year and how he was looked at in terms of running backs for last year. And we just got Ezekiel Elliott for $54. He is a top 4 running back, top 3 running back. This is a PPR league. And considering what Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley went for, I really like the value we got for Ezekiel Elliott. So I'm not mad about this at all. I'm going to try and get Alvin Kamara here as well. Try and be a little bit aggressive right out of the gate. We'll see what happens. There we go with a bid of $55. But I do think, I was going to say, we're going to get in a bidding war a little bit with that team number 2 over there, even though they've already are down to $120. I'm curious who they have on their roster. They've got Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and the Patriots defense. But it looks like, it looks like we're going to go ahead and land Alvin Kamara as well. And look, this is one way to go ahead and approach things. Pretty much going 2 RB1s right out of the get-go. I wanted to see how things would kind of play out with this situation and, how we're going to go ahead and deal with our budget management for the remainder of the draft. Now, obviously, this is going to go ahead and handicap us a little bit because we're not going to be able to get in on some of these other players like a top-end Michael Thomas or a DeAndre Hopkins or a Devontae Adams or a Julio Jones probably, unless we really want to get strapped for cash. So I'm not even honestly going to be looking at these top-end players right now. Unfortunately, Dalvin Cook isn't even an option. But when you look at what his current value is for $53, and if we wanted to get him $54, that's what we got Ezekiel Elliott for. And it just shows you how good of a value we landed Zeke for, considering that Dalvin Cook is right now going under his own contract negotiations, and that's a question mark. But the point being is, even though we spent a lot of money on our first 2 picks, I think we actually got pretty good value. So I'm happy about it. At this point in time, this is one of the drawbacks about being a little bit more aggressive is you're going to sit out the next while of this auction draft out. So usually these auction drafts last a bit longer than your normal snake draft. So do keep that in mind. We're probably going to be looking at a lot of these nominations here and just kind of doing some player analysis, which is nothing wrong with that. I think that's very valuable in and of itself. But in between the time we add another player to our roster, it might take a little bit. But in terms of how we're coming out of the gate, this is a very strong start. Zeke and Alvin Camaro, I absolutely love it. Michael Thomas just got sold for $61, and I believe that makes him one of the top 4 most expensive players so far after Saquon Barkley. Yeah, so he's right at that spot. And this is nothing against Michael Thomas. He broke records last season, for heaven's sake. So I understand the evaluation, but I just don't think that there's that huge of a drop off between a Michael Thomas and a Julio Jones, especially if you're doing a half-point PPR format. And I don't think the evaluation would be that far off between where Michael Thomas is ranked money-wise in those 2 formats. So for that reason, I'm all right kind of just sitting out and waiting for somebody else to go ahead, draft Michael Thomas, some of these other wide receivers, and for me to get someone that's a little bit undervalued, like a Julio Jones or a Mike Evans. And speaking of undervalued guys, Kenyon Drake just went for $45. I think that's very good value. And, kind of thinking back on it, I would have been really happy with having Alvin Kamara and Kenyon Drake, kind of similar type of running backs. And if we went that route, we would have $9 more. So basically insinuating that we went Drake instead of Ezekiel Elliott. So that's why sometimes it's good to do some pre-planning in auction drafts that you can't really do in snake formats, because with auction drafts, you can kind of sit down and look at how different players are priced out and think, okay, what's the separation in skill between an Ezekiel Elliott and a Kenyon Drake? If it's not that much, while the dollar value is a difference of, $10 to $15, well, I'd rather get Kenyon Drake and then upgrade another position like wide receiver or tight end or my flex spot more so. And that's how you go ahead and really win the draft in your auction drafts themselves. So that's something to point out. I think Kenyon Drake is a very good example of that. There's going to be other running backs as well here. Maybe we got a little bit of ahead of ourselves just getting excited with the Ezekiel Elliott and Alvin Kamara situation. But it is what it is. Look, this is our first auction draft, so we're going to do a bunch of these. I did want to go ahead at some point in time and show you guys a pretty aggressive strategy and the kind of situation it can put you in. From there on out, you guys will be the ones that decide whether that's something you want to do and the situation that you are in and whether it's beneficial to you and whether you think it's worth it. So keep all these things in mind. And while we were discussing that, DeAndre Hopkins went for $66. Honestly, I'm shocked that Hopkins went for more money than Michael Thomas did. That's probably the biggest surprise that I've seen so far. And look, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it per se, because I still think DeAndre Hopkins will be a top 5 wide receiver. In fact, I think he's being undervalued by some people, but I'm just surprised that he went for $5 more than Michael Thomas. And again, makes me happy that I stayed out of that bidding process. Let's go ahead and now, though, look at the competition in terms of the other drafting members in this mock draft and how they are doing in terms of their respective funds, because we have got $89, call it $90, while we've still got a couple of teams here that have got $200 left. Now, granted, 2 of them are on auto pick, but one is filled with an active player. And considering the talent that's still there, a Devontae Adams, a Julio Jones, and some of the other running backs that are still there. Let's go ahead and sort that out with guys like Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones, Miles Sanders, Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs. I have zero problem on the flip side. If you didn't want to be aggressive and you wanted to go ahead and be a little bit more conservative and wait for that perfect moment to really strike and bid, this is an example of when to do it. And for that reason, I also tend to sometimes go with that little bit more conservative strategy. The problem, like we've pointed out before, is that if you go ahead and do this and there's another team with also $200, then you can actually end up inadvertently being in a situation where you overpay for those lower tiered players as compared to a top-notch running back or wide receiver that you could have gotten maybe for the same price beforehand earlier on if you were a little bit more aggressive with how you bid on those guys. So keep that in mind. Again, it's a completely different beast, these auction drafts. There's a lot of small things that you just learn as you do. The more mock drafts you do, the better. And honestly, a lot of times it just depends on the type of league you have and the way that people bid. So keep that in mind. We just had Josh Jacobs go for $27. That is an absolute steal. I'm not sure how I missed that. I should have been bidding on him because the fact that he went for $27, I'm pretty sure he was just selected for probably, let's go ahead and look at where he was ranked. He was ranked right around this area, right around Joe Mixon and between Chris Carson, I believe. So I guess it's possible that he was around the 27 range, but I doubt that. I tend to believe he was in the mid-30s. So that's incredible value for Josh Jacobs, the best value so far in the entire draft, considering that Josh Jacobs will probably be, a top 15 running back. Now, sure, it's a PPR format, so he doesn't have as much value, but he's probably the top-notch sophomore running back heading into 2020. So great value, whoever went ahead and landed him there. That's why, again, in these mock draft situations, we kind of break down these players so we can sometimes miss what a certain bid is and what the price is, but it stresses, and it's a perfect example that in your own respective auction drafts, when it's the real deal, you have to really laser focus in, because 1 or 2 seconds of just kind of turning away and missing a bid or a pricing, then you could potentially miss on a huge discount on a player that can be absolutely huge for the makeup of your roster by the end of the draft, because that one person, you could argue, just got an RB1 for the price of an RB2. So again, I really commend the way that went down. So let's go ahead and nominate another player. Julio Jones just went for $49. Derrick Henry went for $44. And right now, kind of like how I said before, we're going to be sitting out some of these nominations and bidding. So I'm going to go ahead and just nominate a player that I have zero interest in getting. That is Aaron Jones. So I believe, we've said it before, that Aaron Jones is going to be a huge regression candidate. And for that reason, I'm not really interested in him in 2020. He had way too many inconsistencies last year, way too many boom or bust games. He lost snaps to Jamal Williams. And with the way this Green Bay offense is looking, with what they did in the draft, with the addition of rookie running back help, well, again, I'm staying away from Aaron Jones. You expect touchdown regression from him as well. So for that reason, I was completely all right just nominating him and seeing somebody else land him. And with that, we only have, I believe, one last team that has $200 left in their budget. Let's go ahead and see how we are doing in terms of other teams compared to who has the most amount of money left. So obviously, let's see what place we are in. One team has more than us. 2 teams, 3 teams, 4, 5. We're pretty much in 5th place. Us and Team 8 are right around the same amount. So not bad in terms of what it could look like. I'm happy with who we have at this point. Let's compare our team, just for the sake of it, to this Team 8 that also has the same amount of funds, and judging which roster you would rather have. So they have Saquon Barkley and then they have Nick Chubb, compared to our Zeke and Alvin Camaro. I realize that a lot of people love Saquon Barkley, and he's their choice for the number one running back in the year. But Nick Chubb isn't as valuable to me in PPR formats as a lot of people believe. So I'd rather have our combination of running backs than this here. We only have $2 less than them. So I think so far we're in a good place compared to someone else that has right around the same amount of money as us. Let's go ahead and continue comparing though, because again, this is part of that education process when it comes to breaking down these auction drafts. Leonard Fournette just went for $24. Good value. I do think people are sleeping on him this year. He's going to have major positive touchdown improvement in 2020. So keep that in mind. He's an underrated pass catcher. Miles Sanders here was just nominated and being bid up to around $38. Him and Josh Jacobs, in terms of separation, I don't think it'll be that much. So again, I think that just goes back to show that Josh Jacobs was an incredible value at what he went for. Joe Mixon now being nominated. But let's go ahead and compare to some of these other teams. So Team 2, who has $14 left, by far the smallest amount of budget left. They've got Patrick Mahomes, Kenyon Drake, Michael Thomas, Travis Kelce, and then the Patriots defense. So, okay, they've got Patrick Mahomes, who's arguably the best quarterback in all of fantasy football, a tier 1 guy that nobody can really touch. But we say this all the time when drafting quarterbacks in general. You want to go ahead and get the quarterback that hasn't broken out yet. You want to get the next Patrick Mahomes, the next Lamar Jackson. You don't want to overpay or overdraft that guy if it were a snake format in the second or third round. And it's kind of what happened here, because this person paid $40 for Patrick Mahomes, and sure, he's going to be a great player. We absolutely believe that. But $40 for your quarterback, that is a lot. That's my personal opinion. Kenyon Drake, $45. I very much so like that selection. Michael Thomas for $61. Again, not a bad selection. And then Travis Kelce for $40, pretty much a wide receiver 1 at the tight end spot. But look, they've got $14 left, and they still need to fill in a second RB spot, a second wide receiver spot, and a flex spot. So that's 3 starting roster spots at the arguably 2 most important positions, running back and wide receiver. So for that reason, that really puts this team in an even bigger bind than we are. So this is my cautionary tale, I guess, if you will, to people that go extremely aggressive, because I would say that this is an example of it. So kind of, just wait a little bit, calm down, chill out, and you can still put together a very good roster, because the depth on this roster is going to be very poor. And we just had Deebo Samuel go for $6. That's a great example, of a good value pick. Adam Thielen before going for $31. He was someone I was interested in, not going to lie. But $31, I'm going to sit that one out. Let's look at some of the other wide receivers that I'm high on and what their nominations will likely be, what their bids will likely be. So an Amari Cooper, $30. A Calvin Ridley, $19. Robert Woods, $20. So I think that's actually very good value there for Robert Woods and a Calvin Ridley. And getting them for $19, $20 compared to an Adam Thielen for $31, that's not bad at all. T.Y. Hilton for $15. If our 3 wide receivers are Calvin Ridley, Robert Woods, and T.Y. Hilton, and I guarantee you some of those will go for less than what they are listed, I would be very happy with that, honestly. Some of those guys are very good PPR type of wide receivers, and others have major breakout potential that guys that are being undervalued, like a T.Y. Hilton. And those 3 guys would fill our 2 wide receiver spots and our flex spot, and it would probably cost us around, I would guess, $50, $50 to $55. We have got $90. So that would fill out the majority of our roster. Then we would be left with a quarterback and a tight end to fill. So again, not bad. Mike Evans going here for $34. Very good value. I'd like to go ahead and get him, but I'm going to sit it out. I will. I know he has top 5 potential, and that's extremely valuable, but we have $89. We can't get too ahead of ourselves because then we're going to be even more strapped for cash. So sometimes those are the tough situations that you put yourself in, and you have to go ahead and just pass on certain players. And again, another good example here, Kenny Golladay going for $28. That's a very good value. We could have gotten in on that. Would have been cheaper than an Adam Thielen and a Mike Evans as well. So again, maybe that's our miss there. DJ Moore going to go here for right around $25, $26. Personally, I'm a little bit nervous about DJ Moore with the situation in Carolina with pretty much an entirely new team, Teddy Bridgewater. So I'm all right passing on DJ Moore. There's some other wide receivers here that I like more so that are valued for a cheaper amount, and I just want to point out that DJ Moore just went for $25 when he was projected to go for $33. So this is the point in time where you're going to see players start to be had at better values. And DJ Moore, Kenny Golladay, both were very good examples of that. Heck, even Mike Evans beforehand. So keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and see how much Mike Evans went for, $34, and I believe he was valued for $40. So again, another great example of that. Let's go to our overall big board and see some of the names that are still available. So, there's guys like a Todd Gurley that I really like for $24, and I bet you he goes probably for $20. So that would be a good value. Juju Smith-Schuster just got nominated. I'd be curious to see whether he fetches that $31 price tag. I think he's a bit of a bigger name, so he's going to get closer to that amount if I had to guess. I'm looking at some other running backs that have very good value. James Conner, $11. That's excellent value, folks. I've been saying it before. His ADP is going slowly and slowly higher and higher as people realize, oh yeah, James Conner is still the workhorse on a very good Pittsburgh offense with a very good offensive line that's high scoring with a healthy Big Ben projected for 2020. James Conner is going to be a great value, and right now he is extremely undervalued at $11. You better believe we're going to go ahead and bid on him. I don't think the drop-off between Todd Gurley and James Conner is all that much, so I'm perfectly all right. I was going to bid on Todd Gurley here, but I'm going to go ahead and instead wait on a James Conner for later. So that's part of our plan at this point in time. Todd Gurley just went for $21. Like we said, Juju Smith-Schuster kind of went for the price projected $32. And since we have seen some of these selections take place, a lot of other teams have gone ahead and spent their funds. And just like that, we are now no longer in 5th or 6th place in terms of how much money we have left. We are in 4th place. This Team 6 is in 1st with $165. Then we have got Team 3 with 102. Then Team 7 with 95. Then it is us. Amari Cooper just went for $22. That is a very good value. And let's go ahead and check on some of these other teams that have a smaller amount of a budget left. Here, Team 1, Leonard Fournette, Joe Mixon, Thielen, DJ Moore, Austin Eckler. So this is a team that's really going the PPR route. Fournette, Thielen, Moore, Eckler, and they have Juju Smith-Schuster on the bench. So that's really not a bad roster. I like this roster more than I like that of Team 2 with the Mahomes, with the Drake, with the Michael Thomas, and the Travis Kelce. It has more depth. It's got the majority of their roster filled out. They just need to add a tight end and a quarterback, and then just kind of fill out the bench however it falls. So I actually really like this Team 1 the way it stands, especially in a PPR format, let me add. Then Team 3 here, they have got $102 left, but they were big spenders early on with Christian McCaffrey and Le'Veon Bell. And for the amount of money that they still have available with pretty much half the funds that they started with at 102, I don't like what they were able to get. Christian McCaffrey is great, but Le'Veon Bell, there's still some question marks, and they've, only added 2 guys, and one of them being a huge question mark in Le'Veon Bell in an offense that I'm kind of staying away from as a whole in the New York Jets. Then let's look at team number 4, Todd Gurley, Devontae Adams, Julio Jones, Tyreek Hill. So this team went wide receiver heavy with Adams, Julio, and Tyreek Hill. I don't mind that. And then Todd Gurley getting a high-end running back. So this is another valid approach to go ahead and try out. If you want to go wide receiver heavy, this allows it. And then getting some of those high-end running backs later on at good value. He'll probably be someone that bids on a James Conner or a David Johnson or a Clyde Edwards-Helaire, some guys that we would be targeting. I really like their wide receivers so far. Again, this is a team that I still like more than what that team number 2 had with Patrick Mahomes, with Michael Thomas, and Kenyon Drake. Then let's look at team number 5 here. Courtland Sutton is currently being nominated, so I just want to keep that in mind as well. Nothing too crazy though in terms of pricing. Then this, I believe we said this is team number 5, and this is to a large extent kind of a throwaway team because they spent $63 on Lamar Jackson. I feel like not much else has to be said. They also spent $66 on DeAndre Hopkins, so no thank you. I'm going to go ahead and here quickly nominate Melvin Gordon. And Melvin Gordon is someone that I have zero interest in, but I know some other teams still need running backs, and I think that this is still a big enough name where the price is going to go up. Some of these auto picks will go ahead and play into the equation. This is the one thing that I don't like about mock auction drafts is that when it gets late, a lot of auto picks show up. But I would say for the sake of the exercise, we're still doing pretty well because we're still keeping an eye out on our own respective budget management. Melvin Gordon went for $18. I believe he was evaluated for $21. So still good value, but again, nobody that we were interested in. And there haven't been any that crazy weird nominations, bids, and wins. Some stand out like a Lamar Jackson, like a before that, Josh Jacobs. But other than that, nothing too crazy. So I think this is pretty accurate for the most part so far. And now we see Clyde Edwards-Helaire being nominated. Zach Ertz just went for $15. And, this is where we're going to get to the point of starting to get back into this draft. We kind of had to wait until these other teams got closer to our budget. And we're pretty much there because the team in first place in terms of money, they have, let's call it $100 here in Team 3. We've got $90, so only a $10 difference really. And I'm all right with that. I think we can go ahead, get back into this, start getting some value. There's still some wide receivers, like I said, that I really like. Robert Woods, Calvin Ridley, all still there. This is a good example of where we can still take advantage of some guys that haven't maybe had their rankings properly adjusted, like a Julian Edelman with the addition of a Cam Newton. I'm curious to see where he is if we went ahead and searched for him. David Johnson here, you see being nominated. Let's see if we can find Julian Edelman here. As I scroll down, $4 for Julian Edelman right here. That's a very good value. He should be ranked higher. His value should be around, probably closer to what Keenan Allen is, around $15. If you want to be conservative, probably between $10 and $15. David Johnson here being nominated for right around $16, $17 is going to be the winning bid. Good value on him. PPR formats. Let's see what we were able to land James Conner for. In terms of, the way that this roster is shaping up, we're still targeting guys that we like and, things like that. So, you guys probably know some of the players that we prefer. But again, it all comes down to budget management and whether we can still land those players and put together a complete roster. That's where this gets very interesting in it of itself. So Devin Singletary just went for $11. Pretty good value there. Odell Beckham is being nominated. He's an intriguing player, obviously a huge name, but where will he go? There's so many mouths to feed in Cleveland. Do you believe in Baker Mayfield? Yes, no, maybe so. These are all questions that you have to answer. I'm going to sit this one out. I'd rather have a Robert Woods or a Calvin Ridley, and it might bite me, in the end. I might have to overpay for a Robert Woods or for a Calvin Ridley compared to an Odell, and we know that Odell can actually produce at that very high level. So honestly, probably Odell, a very good value there at $15. We should have gotten in on that. We still don't have wide receivers. Our 2 running back spots are taken care of. We will have a drop off in talent for wide receiver. But if we can hit on some of these guys, again, with this being a PPR format, it kind of makes up for that drop in talent. And if we can get depth, it'll also be nice. There's still some very good wide receivers left, as I continue to say. Jonathan Taylor here being nominated for about $15 at this point in time. Let's look at some of these wide receivers again. Robert Woods, like we said, $20. Ridley, let's kind of scroll down though. Devontae Parker, $12. That's pretty good value considering how he did last year. Julian Edelman, $4. Brennan Cooks, $2. Great value. So what we want to do here is kind of playing out my ideal scenario is we want to go ahead and land, I'll say, 3 of those wide receivers that we mentioned. We want to go ahead, add some more running back depth in a James Conner, hopefully. And then let's see our quarterback evaluations. Quarterbacks, Drew Brees, Matt Ryan, all $2. That is perfect. I think we can get one of those guys and be extremely happy with that situation. Tight ends, let's see where our tight ends stack up. Darren Waller, $8. Evan Ingram, $3. Tyler Higbee, $3. I very much so like Jack Doyle. So I'm probably going to, and he's probably valued for $0. Wow. Okay, that is a travesty. I want to point that out. But other than that, we're going to hit those other positions first, the skill positions here with wide receiver and another running back. And then we're going to go ahead, probably just queue up a quarterback and a tight end since those 2 positions are so cheap. And if we have to wait until we get our guys, quote unquote, we're probably going to have to be here for a while, and no need to make this video any longer than it has to be, because again, this is an auction draft. It's a little bit longer than what you're used to for a standard snake draft, so keep that in mind. And here again, I'm kicking myself because we're going to overpay for Robert Woods when we could have had Odell Beckham for $15. But I believe in Robert Woods. I believe in him in PPR formats, and that's what we're gonna do here. Let's see, just for for the sake of it, if I nominate someone like a Matt Ryan, whether we can go ahead and land him and just have that kind of out of the equation and taken care of. So let's see if someone bids on him. I'm all right paying $3. I'm telling you right now, I will not pay more than $3 for Matt Ryan. Even $3 I think is a very good value. I will point out that I believe ESPN kind of has their quarterbacks undervalued. So for what that's worth, I'm going to go ahead here. If I can hit the button, yep, we got to $3. If anybody bids $4, kudos to you, Matt Ryan. You got him at $4. But nope, we landed him at $3, so that's another roster spot taken care of. Calvin Ridley just got nominated, and as you can see, our max bid so far, $55 is what we can do. And the bidding is going up for one Calvin Ridley. This is not what I wanted to see, folks. But that is the situation that we find ourselves in, and I'm going to go ahead and bid on him again. This is a guy that I believe in. This is someone that I think will have a good year, but will we be able to land him? I'm going to go to $22. Again, if I actually hit the button, if he goes to 23, I'm getting out. That's it. That's fine. You can go ahead. You can have him. I'm going to go ahead and look at a T.Y. Hilton. I'm going to look at a Devontae Parker. We already overpaid for Robert Woods, so that is fine. You have to be able to choose your battles here in these auction drafts. So I'm okay with the way we went about this. If this was a snake format, again, I would probably prioritize someone like a Calvin Ridley, but with us going the way that we did, I'm all right with the way that this is turning out. And let's again compare what we have in terms of funds compared to these other players, because we are now, even with the drafting of a Robert Woods, we're actually in second place now officially, I believe. Yes, at $66, only behind team number 3, who is still at 102, with their only 2 players being Christian McCaffrey and Le'Veon Bell. So we're actually in a very good spot, and we can get close to kind of wrapping this up maybe, and projecting what the remainder of our roster will look like. And with some of these people having gone to auto pick, that might be the only kind of inaccuracy at this point in time. If they were still involved, some of these players maybe wouldn't be going for as cheap as they are, or maybe they would actually be going for cheaper, because the way that auto picks are done and bots are designed with these auction drafts is they manually just bid up these players so that you can't get them at an absolute steal. So for that reason, sometimes that can have the other effect. But here you can see Dak Prescott, he'll go for $4. So again, it's a good example that some of these quarterbacks are undervalued here on ESPN. You should go ahead and check out what each positional group, how they are evaluated, what their price is on your respective platform. Keenan Allen here now, it'll be interesting to see what his price goes for. We know that Keenan Allen is an extremely talented PPR type of wide receiver, but without Phillip Rivers there, how much faith do you have in Keenan Allen? You know, if this value stays under $15, I might go ahead and take a chance on him. We'll see what happens. So it's right now, if I can get that bid in, did I get it in? We will see. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Oh, I did, but it was just immediately overbid. I'm going to go ahead and bid again. Bid again at $15. Let's see if we can get him. He's still a very good PPR type of wide receiver, but we have gotten bid up to $16. So the question is, what do we want to do? Well, I'm going to go ahead and pass on him. I'll get Julian Edelman later. And instead here, I'm going to get some more depth at running back with James Conner. I'm going to make sure that I can do that because I believe that that is very important at this point in time. Add him as my flex, and then I can still get T.Y. Hilton or Devontae Parker as my wide receiver too. Probably can even get both of them if I'm honest with you guys. Mark Andrews here, another good example of one of these guys being overvalued. And I'm happy that the person that's winning this nomination is the person that currently has more money than me. And just like that, we are in first place in terms of funds. So we can start to throw around our weight here a little bit and dictate the way that some of these bids are going. And let's go ahead and bid $13 on T.Y. Hilton. And I'll even go ahead and go up to $15. Let's see if anybody else gets in on this. Oh, actually, a couple of people got in on it. Yeah, okay. So that team number 3 again is getting involved in the action. So, all right, go ahead, get T.Y. Hilton. I'll go ahead and get Devontae Parker. I'm all right with that. I don't think the drop-off is that big, and then we can still get our Julian Edelman. So I'm perfectly fine with this. I like the way that this is working out. Darren Waller is someone that I think will be intriguing here. I'm going to go ahead and put a bid on him that didn't even go through just because there's a bidding war on him at this point in time, because he does have a high PPR ceiling. We'll see what happens here. Pre-draft value of $8 right now. The value is $10. I can probably go ahead and wait on a tight end, so I'm all right. I'll stick this one out. I want to make sure I can get my Devontae Parker, get my James Conner, and then we can call it a day for the most part. Because, yeah, Darren Waller is probably going to go for $12 right here. Not a bad value, but all things considered, I have some other more important positions that I want to guarantee for myself. So it's almost our turn to go ahead and nominate a player again. And I'm just going to go ahead and nominate probably just Devontae Parker right away and see how that plays out. The only person that I'm really there's only 2 teams that I'm kind of worried about potentially getting in a bidding war with me. It's team number 3 here, team number 7, because they are on auto pick. So let's go ahead and see if we can get them to go ahead and waste some of their money. The Devontae Parker and James Conner will still be nominated. Let's go ahead and get Jarvis Landry thrown out there as a name. One of these guys will go ahead and bid on him, and then we won't have to worry about them as being, candidates to go on that team. And that's exactly what's happening here. I love it. Team 3 and team number 7 are bidding on Jarvis Landry. One of them will go ahead and spend $13 on him. So that'll kind of put them potentially out of the sweepstakes for Devontae Parker. And that is perfectly fine with me. Let us go now to our team here, as I'm realizing that we are not on our own roster. The way our roster looks so far: Matt Ryan, Zeke, Alvin Kamara, Robert Woods. So we've still got some work to do, but we're getting close to having this thing wrapped up. And, I'm not going to go ahead and fill out the entire bench here because that means we'll probably be here for another hour. And it's going to be nominations and bids for probably, low amounts of money. And that's not all that interesting. So let's go ahead and make a bid here on Devontae Parker, $9. We'll see if we win that bid. So far, we are winning it. I'll tell you right now, if someone else outbids us, we're still going to win it. But no, we got Devontae Parker for $9. Absolutely love it. So that is nice to see there. And we have got our wide receiver number 2. Let's remember how Devontae Parker finished the season for Miami last season, and that gets you excited about the potential there. He's, there's him and Calvin Ridley not quite on the same level, but nonetheless, I'm excited about having Devontae Parker. Spending, I believe Calvin Ridley went for $23, spending $14 less will allow us to get for sure a James Conner. It'll allow us to potentially get some depth at running back like a David Montgomery, because if an injury happens to a Zeke or a Camaro or James Conner, well, we've got someone else to step up like a David Montgomery. So I'm perfectly fine with that. Let's see how else this can play out. And before we do that, though, let's get back into it, because that one of those players is up for nomination now in James Conner. And I'm telling you right now, we are going to land him no matter what. The bid is up to $10. We are winning that bid. It's going to be between us and Team 4. We're going up to $12. It's going to be a back and forth, I've got a feeling. But this is why we went ahead. Perfect example of nominating someone else beforehand to get that team number 4 to have less funds than we did. And due to that reason, probably they didn't want to get in a bidding war with us, and we were able to land James Conner. And just like that, we have got almost the core of our roster filled out. We have $45 left. And with that, we can add guys like a David Montgomery. We can go ahead and land guys like at wide receiver. Let's see who's still there. A Julian Edelman, who, keep in mind his value should be higher than what it is. So with all these auto drafts, some of these players probably should be going for a higher amount. So when it's all said and done, if we went through this entire exercise with this auction mock draft, our funds probably wouldn't be as close to zero as I would like. And again, that's another hugely important aspect of this. You want to maximize your funds. You want to get as close to zero as possible, because that means you made the most out of each selection. Because if you have money left over, that means you could have upgraded some position but didn't. So that's why it's super important to go ahead and get the most bang out of your buck. Bang for your buck, I should say. Tom Brady just went for $4. So let's continue to monitor this. We're going to be able to get some decent depth on this team. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to go ahead and queue up some players. And basically, that's going to go ahead and make sure that we, are in the top, in the running for landing those players if we exit this draft. And I'm going to go ahead and queue up the following guys. I'm going to go ahead and queue up Evan Ingram. I'm going to queue up Jack Doyle right there. Yep. Then I'm going to go ahead and queue up some wide receivers. Let's queue up Julian Edelman. Perfect. Let's then go ahead and queue up Brendan Cooks. Great. Are there any other wide receivers that we currently want to queue up? Those are the 2 main names that I wanted to mention. We'll see what price they go for. At what other position can we queue up some players? Running back, David Montgomery. We're going to go ahead and queue him up. Kareem Hunt. Let's queue him up as well. Yep, that's taken care of. So I like the way we are looking. We can potentially get a handcuff like a Tony Pollard. Actually, not potentially. We should. We should queue up a guy like a Tony Pollard, someone like a Latavius Murray. Let's go ahead and just get a nomination of one of those wide receivers we were talking about, Julian Edelman. Just nominate him and then go ahead and land him and have that taken care of as well. See how this goes. We might even get him for $1. Who knows? But again, I should point out that Julian Edelman's value here, it should be closer to probably $10 than that $4 amount. So I'm going to go ahead and bid $5. That'll probably guarantee us landing him, and it'll put us down to $40. So again, at this point in time, we by far pretty much have the most amount of money left. So unfortunately, we could have done a better job maximizing our funds. We could have probably, in retrospect, gone after and landed a Calvin Ridley, or gone after and landed a, Josh Jacobs or Mike Evans, for example. But that's why these are the learning experiences. You go ahead, you mess around with it, see what comes out of it, and then you adjust. So we're gonna go ahead and see how this goes in the next mock auction draft that we do, and probably compare this roster to that roster, and you guys feel free to do the same and say which roster you guys prefer. But I mean, for now, obviously, let's focus in on what we have going on at hand. Let's go ahead and make a bid on David Montgomery. We can go ahead and pretty much guarantee that we get him here at $8. And we have pretty much, well, gotten the majority of our roster, including actually some bench spots. I was joking around that we probably wouldn't go ahead and fill out this bench, but we have actually started to do so with 2 players already, in Montgomery and Julian Edelman. We are down to $32. Marlon Mack is also another player that we can go ahead and get. I like his upside as far as running backs. I'd rather probably target a Kareem Hunt, especially in a PPR format. So I'm all right passing on Marlon Mack, actually. Let's go ahead and get 1 or 2 more players, and we'll call this one a day. Pretty much tight end, Brennan Cooks are the next players that we have on our big board. So let's give this another 5-10 minutes and wrap this up. But as far as judging how this went, well, let's start with their selection of running backs. Ezekiel Elliott, Alvin, Camaro. For one thing, you could never go ahead and land this combination in a standard snake draft. That's why these auction drafts are pretty unique and pretty awesome, that if you go ahead and decide to land 2 of the top 4 running backs, you can actually do it. Then wide receiver, obviously, this is where you're going to see a drop in talent, but that's expected. We could have gone ahead, like I said, I continue to point out how much money we actually have. We could have probably gone ahead and gotten a Mike Evans instead of a Devontae Parker or Robert Woods. But then how deep would our bench have been? That's another question you have to ask yourself. And yes, I realize that the majority of one's budget, especially in auction drafts, goes towards their starting roster. And some people say, look, I don't even want to think about my bench all that much. It's all about the starting unit. I'll think about the bench when it comes to it. If I have to deal with injuries, I'll pick up guys off of waivers. It is what it is. But, I like having that depth, so I'm all right with how this is going. I would argue that we probably have one of the strongest benches at this point in time with Edelman, Montgomery, and Hunt. Our running back spots are extremely strong right now. We started with Zeke, Camaro, James Conner, Montgomery, and Hunt. So honestly, I'm giving us an A+ for running backs the way it looks right now. Wide receivers, obviously, that's where the question is. Robert Woods, Devontae Parker, Julian Edelman. I'll give that one, probably a C+, B- if those guys hit. If a Robert Woods hits, if a Devontae Parker hits, then we could be looking at a B type of group of wide receivers, which would not be bad at all. Then quarterback, $3 for Matt Ryan. That is a steal. I could even add another high-end quarterback if I really wanted to, like I believe Drew Brees is still on the board. Yeah, Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, Josh Allen. Yeah, you've got plenty of options. In fact, here, I'll just go ahead, for the sake of it, just queue up Drew Brees as well, and we can go ahead and have him on our list. So we have got 2 more nominations to go before it's our turn to nominate. So we'll go ahead and stick that out and then nominate a tight end and have the majority of our roster complete. But honestly, the way that this has taken place, I'm happy with the way our roster looks. This is our first auction draft, and all things considered, I think it's a strong roster. I really do. I realize wide receiver could be an issue, but it could be a lot worse. So I will take it. And right now, after we add a tight end, I'd probably say that our roster is got an overall B+ grade. I'm very high on our running backs again. I could even be convinced to an A- grade. But let's get to our last selection here, and then we will call it a day. We'll go ahead and nominate Evan Ingram. And yes, he is maybe a boomer bust type of guy with some injury concerns, but that's why we're going to go ahead and get another tight end. That's why we've got Jack Doyle on our queue list. So we're going to go ahead and nominate him. Let's bid $3. Hopefully that goes through. Yep, it will. And that'll pretty much guarantee that we get him, I believe, unless somebody else joins in on this bidding. So I would say, just kind of wrapping this up, main takeaways. You can be successful if you're aggressive, but then don't wait too long, maybe like how we did, to get back in on the drafting action, because we're probably going to have, when it's all said and done, $15 left over, and that's a lot of money in an auction draft. So we could have done much better in that regard. But I think all in all, knowing some of these value picks, we were still able to make up for that to some extent. So keep that in mind. Otherwise, again, I really like the way our roster ended up turning out. We went ahead and added some queued up players so you guys know who we would target afterwards. Let us hear it in the comment section. Did you agree, disagree with our approach? Do you like the team, along with any other fantasy questions you guys might have? And no worries, we'll be doing more of these auction drafts as well. And another quick reminder, check out the all new and updated website at alldaypigskin.com. Get yourself a copy of the 2020 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. All the details in the description. If you guys enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in future videos.